18 months ago, nearly 40% of companies made a decision. They looked at their workforce, they looked at the new AI tools flooding the market, and they decided to start replacing people with algorithms. Hundreds of thousands of employees were laid off, with executives confidently saying that AI could do the work of hundreds of people for less money. Today, 55% of those companies admit they made a catastrophic mistake. Customer satisfaction has tanked. Productivity has collapsed, and some companies are now quietly trying to rehire the very people they fired. However, if you think they are doing this because they learned their lesson, you're wrong. 67% of these same leaders still believe AI will solve all of their problems by the end of this year. So, what's really going on? Because this all looks like a big contradiction that's making us question everything happening in the market. After studying the data from hundreds of companies that failed with these AI layoffs, I actually found out something that's completely changing how we think about this collapse. And technology actually has very little to do with it. To really understand why this happened, we need to go back to March of 2020. Offices shut down and millions of workers went remote, and something invisible broke. Before remote work, employee value was visible. The casual, great job on that report in the hallway. The team celebration after closing a deal. The simple acknowledgement of being seen doing good work. And that visibility created a natural recognition system. But when everyone went remote, that ambient visibility evaporated overnight and it never got rebuilt. A recent study shows that 65% of employees say they don't receive enough recognition at work. For frontline workers, it's even worse. Only 17% feel connected to their company's culture. But when researchers asked managers to describe what their remote employees uniquely contribute, most couldn't give specific answers. The work is still happening, the value is still being created, but it had become invisible to the people making decisions about that work. And when work becomes invisible, it starts to look replaceable. So let's fast forward to 2024. AI tools are everywhere, and honestly, they're pretty impressive. Chatbots that can handle customer inquiries, AI that can write content, algorithms can analyze data, and executives are being told these tools can replace entire departments. This is where the visibility crisis becomes catastrophic. When a CEO looks at their customer service team and asks, could AI do this work? What information are they using to make that decision? If they can't see the work, if they can't describe it, well, of course AI can do it. It's just answering questions. And the data really does speak to this issue. 25% of business leaders admit they don't know which roles can benefit from AI. 30% don't know which roles are most at risk from automation, and 38% admit they don't understand the impact AI can have on their business. But despite all this ignorance on their own workforce or the technology, 76% are confident they'll master AI by the end of this year. How did this all play out? Well, let's take a look at Klarna. They're a fintech company. In 2022, they laid off 700 employees. That was about 10% of their workforce. By 2024, they were proudly announcing their AI could do the work of 700 people. And then what happened next? Almost immediately after, their customer service ratings collapsed entirely. The user complaints spiked, and they suddenly realized that AI couldn't read the emotional cues or solve the problems that didn't match the script the AI was trained on. The employees that got fired were doing invisible work that Klarna's executives simply overlooked because they oversimplified it. By early 2025, the CEO was forced to publicly admit costs unfortunately seem to have been a too predominant evaluation factor, which means we only saw the salary expense, not the value. By the end of the year, Klarna was quietly trying to rehire their customer service agents. Now let's take a look at Duolingo. They laid off 10% of their contract translators to pursue an AI-first strategy. This turned into content errors plaguing up to 42% of courses in some languages, and user retention dropped 18% in a single quarter. And once again, we see these massive companies overlooking and oversimplifying the job of these translators. translators. They weren't just converting words from one language to another. They were also bringing cultural context, linguistic nuance, and pedagogical expertise. They were doing invisible work that looked simple on a spreadsheet, but it's irreplaceable in practice. And this pattern is literally repeating itself across every company that has failed to implement AI properly. Let's mix this up a little and talk about companies that have had success with AI. What do they have in common? A recent study that surveyed over 2,800 employees found that organizations with structured AI adoption were nearly 8 times more likely to report positive cultural outcomes compared to companies that just threw AI at the problem. This is the key word: structured adoption, not AI layoffs. Structured adoption requires visibility. That could be better documentation systems, regular skill checks, or a recognition system that captures what people actually do in a way that makes them feel seen. The advantage of recognition is that it happens in real time. It's specific and it creates a living record. But the point here is, companies that succeed have a system for making invisible work visible. They ask themselves, how can AI empower our people instead of how can AI save us money? So if you found this video valuable and you're wondering how you can build the right infrastructure inside of your business to document and recognize what your employees are doing, we built software that makes this plug and play for your business. Feel free to check it out below, and I'll catch you in this video next.